Book 101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's the author of the book A Date with Suicide, none other than Mr. D Paul Fleming.
Hey, Daniel, how are you?
I'm fabulous, Mr. Paul. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Oh, you did a pretty good job. I'm retired from the Navy. I'm retired from a few other things, and now I write books. Got some good novels coming out. Good stuff.
Good stuff indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So tell us, the title, A Date with Suicide, is so stark and powerful. Can you share a significance of this title and what it represents about that specific point in your life?
Well, A Date with Suicide is, I think it's the second full book that I published. And it literally goes to the heart of why veterans are killing themselves at an ungodly pace of more than 50 a day. I know a lot of folks are familiar with the term 22 a day, but the reality is more than 50 veterans a day are taking their lives. And I was in that category for a period of time, and I spent decades helping vets overcome a lot of obstacles, including the what happens to the 22 or 50 a day. And it led to the point of sitting down and writing the book and explaining to everybody why veterans are taking their lives.
What was the catalyst that led you to not only share this deeply personal story, but frame it in a book to help others?
Yeah, so a couple years, maybe 2 years, 3 years after I came out of the military, um, I get a call from somebody I hadn't a shipmate I hadn't seen in years, and he says, "Hey, I want to get together." And it was a week before the Super Bowl, and I'm young family, third or fourth kid on the way. So I wasn't in that get out and hustle with friends mode. I was in the be a parent and a father and a husband mode, right? But when this guy called, we were going to meet a week later. So we set it up. And I said, "All right, listen, we'll get together, watch the Super Bowl, tell me what's on your mind, and we'll figure this out." Um, Week goes by, I reach out, pick up the phone, call him, and this lady that I've never spoken to before, it's on the phone, and she starts yelling at me, and I have no idea why. And after a long pause, she says, "You don't know, do you?" I says, "I don't know what. Listen, I'm gonna meet Randy for drinks and watch the Super Bowl. That's all I'm calling for. So I don't want any problems. I don't know who you are." And she says, "You really don't know, do you?" I says, "No, what?" She goes, "He went out and hung himself in the barn right after he got off the phone with you." Well, that was 4 decades ago, right?
Mhm.
And that the imagery of that phone call, the mental pictures that are flashing through my head right now, stuck with me with such starkness then and now that I always heard, "You need to tell the story. You need to tell the story." And over decades of doing other things in life, it kind of came out in this story, A Date with Suicide. It's a hell of an impactful book. I've had a lot of vets and family members of vets reach out and either say this book has saved their lives or helped change their lives or done things to help them get on a better course. But that's the story. That's the catalyst behind the reasoning for writing that book.
Writing a memoir like this requires immense vulnerability. What is the most difficult part of your story to commit to paper, and why is it important to include it?
Well, if I remember right, the opening lines on chapter one spell it out by saying, how do we talk about our most intimate secrets? How do we tell the world about the things that terrify us the most, or the things that rip our insides apart the most, right? How do you tell that story? And for me, it was like so many other things I've done in life. I had to, reach down, grab my bootstraps, tighten them up, stand up, take it like a man, and tell the story, right? It wasn't easy. And this book, and honestly, my first book, were some of the most painful things that I've ever had to, publicly say out loud. And to caveat that, my first book and this book, uh, my wife didn't know anything about it until I handed her the finished copies, and she sat down and read it, and said, listen, this answers a lot of questions for her as to why I am the way I am and why I react to certain things in a certain way. So it's a highly charged, highly emotional series or a couple of books. But most of us keep all of this bottled up inside. When you either tell somebody what's going on with you or you sit down and write the story, when it comes out, it's amazing how much release there is wrapped around those words that we print in black and white.
Interesting indeed, Mr. Paul. So, for those who have never experienced such profound despair, how would you describe the mindset of someone who is reached at the point of making a plan or a date?
Yeah, yeah. Here's what I try to tell people. The reason the book is titled "A Date with Suicide" is veterans are very organized. They want things to be a certain way. So it doesn't matter what we do in life, but we map these things out. And when a veteran is suicidal, the last thing they do is map out the date. They put all the rest of the pieces in place, and then they determine a date. Just like Randy, that noose wasn't hanging in his garage prior, or that noose was hanging in his garage prior to calling me. His plan was done. He was just making his final goodbyes. You following me? So the
Yes.
date is the last thing, in my experience, that a veteran puts out there, or should I say, doesn't put out there. And the sad part is, this is about 6 months ago, another guy I served with, another shipmate, just he killed himself, and he had a pact with one of our other shipmates, another good friend of mine, that if they ever got to that point, they would talk to each other. And he didn't. He put everything in motion, didn't say a word about his date, and then he took his life.
In the midst of such deep pain, what was the single smallest thing you created a crack of light or a moment of hesitation?
Well, I don't know about using the word hesitation for me at least, but my faith is what kept me, from the end game, right? I mean, I sat there many a night with the opportunity and the means, and my faith is what always came back, to kind of hold me in line, if you will. That deep faith in the baby Jesus and my Native American heritage and all the stuff that I believe in on a spiritual level. For me, that's what it all came down to. And when I'm out there helping veterans, one of the things that I say to them, you got the four corners of your existence: your physical, your mental, your spiritual, and your emotional bodies, right? You have to
Mm.
balance all four of those bodies in order to, have what we want in life, happiness, calm, peace, and so on. When you're in that battle with suicide, the physical, the mental, and the emotional pieces, those are the things that you are struggling with. Okay. So you have to figure a way to deal with those things. But once you come to terms with your spirituality, everything changes. So my experience helping other vets has been that the spiritual piece comes in last. Right. Again, especially for guys that aren't, very religious or have a deep faith. But tying that spiritual piece back into, what they're doing with their other elements, their emotional, their physical, and their mental, is key. And why do I say the physical, the mental, and the emotional? Well, anxiety is a huge component to to suicide, right? Well, anxiety is both physical and emotional, right? You get that tightness in your chest and so on. So you've got to learn how to deal with those things so that you can release the anxiety. And this is why there's such a drug and alcohol epidemic among veterans. You know, they're drinking or doing drugs to release that anxiety, right? You know, so it's a broad. There's a lot of topics to cover under why veterans are committing suicide, and I put it all together in a pretty nice flowing book on how to address each one of the four corners of your existence, and eventually getting to the spiritual piece. Now, I have run into guys that spiritual piece has been their leading edge, you know, and I commend them for that.
How did your perception of time, connection, and your own identity shift during this period?
Um, I need a little more color on that. When you're saying this period, you're talking about the. No, I need some more information on that.
About the period when people getting suicide?
Um, yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that one, Daniel.
So, on healing and recovery, what did the early stages of choosing life instead of the date look like, and what was the first step?
Well, um, no matter how far I went down the path of suicide, my backstop was always faith. Okay, so I never really kind of stepped across that line and set a date. Okay, um, but the path to getting there is long, right? Most people don't have a single event in their life and then go commit suicide. It tends to be event after event after event after event. Most significantly, a traumatic event, whether it's combat or dealing with all the stuff that the military that you go through as a military person. Um, uh, I'm kind of losing my train, Daniel. I apologize.
No worries at all. No worries at all, Mr. Paul. So, based on your experience, what are some of the often overlooked signs that someone might be serious trouble, even if they say they are fine?
Yeah, I never listen to anybody when they say they're fine. That kind of goes in one ear and out the other. That's just a generic statement that the entire population makes when you ask how you are, right? People come up and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Nobody really says, "I'm not good. I'm suicidal. You want me to tell you about it?" Most people don't want to listen, right? They don't want to get
Yes.
ingrained in something, especially something so, you know, horrific, so powerful, so overwhelming. So we're programmed when people ask us, how are you, to just do the generic response, oh, I'm fine, blah, blah, blah. Okay. For me, when I listen, what I do is I listen to not just what they're saying, but how they're saying it. And I have the gift of being able to kind of read people's emotions. I can read their energy. So I can get a better sense by looking at them or listening to them as to where they truly are. Okay. So
Yes.
how does a veteran get to the point of suicide? In a nutshell, it's typically a trauma that has happened while they were in the military, and then the trauma of dealing with the Veterans Administration after the military. I've said this for decades now. The VA is PTSD, which leads veterans to suicide.
Hmm. So, Mr. Paul, what is the most helpful thing someone said or did for you when you are struggling? Conversely, what is something people said that was unhelpful, even a good intentions?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the second one. I'll have to think on that. But the first one is keep the faith. Ever since I
Mm,
was young, I had these people that would say these certain things to me, and one of them was keep the faith. And over time, I learned to add to that by saying, and keep moving forward. So when I hear somebody say keep the faith, it perks my ears up and brings me back to a lot of flash traffic of when it seems like somebody would always show up right when I needed to hear those words, keep the faith, right? So
mm,
when I've got that absorbed into me, I said, okay, now that I keep the faith, now what do I do? What do I tell my fellow vets? Well, it's simple. Keep moving forward, right?
Yes.
If you look at the age of the bar graph on the age of veterans committing suicide, it typically starts exploding at the age of 60. Well, why is that? Well, for the prior 40, 50 years, we're running as fast as we can possibly run, right? And then as life and age creeps up on us and retirement starts entering the picture, we don't have that constant thing to be moving towards or away from, depending on, your mindset, right? So once we hit that age of 60 and we start slowing down, the stuff that we never settled with, the stuff that we never overcame, the stuff we never healed from that's been sitting there is now stepping forward quickly. Once that does, it starts affecting you physically, i.e., anxiety. Right? Anxiety is horrible. If nobody's ever experienced anxiety or a panic attack, when you're suicidal, those are two of the things that just plague your body. It plagues your emotions, and it wreaks havoc on your mind. So, from a healing perspective, which is kind of goes back to the root of your question, from the healing perspective, I had to learn to heal from my trauma in order for me to take the steps away from that suicidal mentality.
Mr. Paul, as an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Yeah, so I'm in that retirement stage of life now. So my goals are to continue to help fellow veterans and anybody who's dealing with mental health issues. Okay. For me, my wife has stage 4 cancer, so we're in a battle of our lives here once again. And what I do is I'm writing. So my newest book out is Mysteries of the Wyndham Inn. It's out October 1st. I'm sorry, Mysteries of the Wyndham Inn. It's some vets paint. I've learned to write. Some vets shoot a lot of guns. I'm not saying I don't, but I've learned to write. So my future is about writing and podcasts and telling these stories to help other vets and coming up with these stories that aren't as tough a subject matter as a date with suicide. The Mysteries of the Wyndham Inn is a great spooky mystery, right? About what goes
Hmm.
on in the afterlife and so on, ghosts and goblins. So that's what I'm doing, Daniel. I'm going to focus on writing novels and you know see if I can't make a dent in the world, right?
Yes, indeed. And we support you on Book 101 Review 100%. And what would be a piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an author like you? And good luck to your goals and looking forward for more success.
Well, the first thing I would encourage everyone to do is get out there and get on Dan Lucas's show. Okay, you got to get on 101 Review because if you're not, you're never going to be anybody. It's the greatest show out there. Am I wrong, Daniel?
Yes, this is number one show for sure. For the book lovers out there, I'm number 34 on the Apple chart, if I'm not mistaken. But
Oh,
yes, people, please
well then get
do.
get these folks out there to get Mysteries of the Wyndham Inn. It's on pre-order now until October 1st on KDP. Paperback
KDP.
comes out October 1st as well. And on this series, I wrote it under D Paul. That's my author name for this one. I think it's up here, D Paul. So book 1 is out October 1st. Book 2 in the series is out late November. Maybe you'll have me back then. We'll
Yes.
do some spooky stuff.
Yes, spooky stuff. And thank you for that advice. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Another book that influenced.
Yes,
Yeah.
influence your journey.
Yeah, so there's two great authors out there. One is Dr. Joy Gray, aka Granddaughter Crow. She's part of the Navajo Nation. A great lady, absolutely great lady. Her latest book is Working with Shadow. All right, I read that a few months ago. I haven't posted a clip on it, but she is an absolutely fantastic shaman and author. She's got some great books out there, Belief, Being, and Beyond. And if you want to learn about Native Americanism or shamanism and so on, or how the spirit world works, she's a great person to follow her books and connect with her online. And the other one would probably be Lisa Ann Rooney. As I like to say, she's my favorite Canadian, short of hockey players. But she writes some good books. She just put another book out talking about the ghosts that she sees in her day-to-day life. It's pretty wild stuff. Great authors.
Thank you for that recommended books, Mr. Paul. And tell us, beyond your book, what resources do you find most critical for support and prevention for suicide?
Yeah, the biggest thing I tell folks, veteran or not, you got to tell your story. You have to get around people like me who have been through what you're going through or what you've been through, and tell your story. It always seemed to me when I wrote the book A Date with Suicide, I was saying to myself, who the hell is gonna who wants to read my story? Why would anybody want to listen to the traumas that I've been through? And the answer is because it helps other people relate to the traumas that they've been through, and it helps them tell their story. Once you start telling your story, things change. As I say, I have never heard of a veteran who went out there and truly told their story and then ended up committing suicide. I'm not saying that hasn't happened. I'm just saying I know that when veterans talk about their past, talk about the trauma, talk about the things that we bury so deep inside of us, when we open up and let that out, then we are opening ourselves up to physical, spiritual, emotional, and mental change, the four corners of our existence. So talking about it is critical, Daniel.
Definitely. And before we wrap up our discussion today, Mr. Paul, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my BB podcast, Law 101 and mental health 101, love letters in third season, and movie 101 review and music 101 in fourth season, and science 101 and sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So finally, Mr. Paul, for anyone listening who has their own date looming, what is one thing you need them to know the right now?
Call me. Call me. Call my cell phone, send me an email, reach out to me on Facebook, on X, reach out. Okay, I'm here. I've listened to many, many, many stories. Your stories won't shock me, won't change me, won't make me think different of you. Okay. Reach out. Okay. Don't set a date. Reach out. Read my book. If you can't afford it, I'm happy to mail you a free copy. Okay. And if you know somebody, especially family members, I try to tell everybody that, well, the book is written through the lens of a veteran. More veterans' family members come to me who said they read their book than veterans who actually read the book. And it's helped family members and friends of veterans truly understand the mindset. And I'll close that loop with this. There's one review on Amazon that comes from a retired mental health clinician. She said she spent over 20 years in this review. She wrote she had spent over 20 years trying to get veterans to talk about and tell their story. And she said, I never could. Your book is the first time I've ever seen anybody open up and tell the raw truth about what it's like to be someone like me.
Mr. Paul, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your upcoming book as well as your other books?
Yes, sir. A Date with Suicide and 2,442 Steps to Crazy. Both great books, and get them on Amazon. And my newest release is is Mysteries at the Wyndham Inn. It's book one in a series. Spooky stuff, guys.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. D Paul Fleming because if you support him for sure, as I said, more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Paul, thank you so much for your time.
Great talking with you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.